This is Digitiser Pro version 3. I just read a little message from somebody who owns this program saying that it doesn't insert tie stitches, and this particular person owns the Brother multi-needle machine. Now, I'm not certain what the settings are on the Brother multi-needle machines for trimming jumps, because each different brand of machine has a slightly different command for cutting jump stitches. I've got a 12 needle industrial, which if it only detects the minutest little gap will trim and insert those aggravating tie stitches that cause lumps underneath, because I don't actually like designs which are full of trims. I'd rather have a design which is pathed and has no unnecessary trims and no unnecessary tie stitches, so everything is connected by travel lines. But that's me, and that's my personal preference. Okay, when you look at this screen, you can see between this object and this object there is a jump. There is a tie stitch there, and there is a locking stitch here. And if I go in and magnify this up, and I go into setup, I'm going to change my background color of my hoop, and I'm going to make it a color that shows up the jump stitch. There we go. And I'm going to go to view needle points. Thank you. Now, first of all, it looks like a nightmare of polka dots. This is what we are looking at. This jump. Now, there is a big jump here, but it's from the center of the hoop to the first object, and it goes right to the middle of that first object. There is the tie stitch, just where my cursor is now. And in between that tie stitch and this locking on stitch, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 needle up commands, which means the machine, if it's set on 3, if it's one of those that counts the needle up command, will trim. If it's a distance, then you've got to work out what the distance is between there and there, and what distance your machine travels before it activates a trim. Now, you can do that in MB3 by using the M key on your keyboard, which will bring up a ruler, and from that point down to the first lock-in stitch down here is 25.9, and that's millimeters. So that's a reasonable sized jump, and it will work. Okay, so let me just get rid of my measuring stick, and we'll come over and we'll look at the two objects over here. Now, there is no little triangle and there is no little circle. The gap is too small to create a trim command. So what can I do about that? Well, the first thing I can do is I can highlight that shape by going to my resequence bar and coming to Object Reshape. And I can see that is my start point just there. And up here is my end point. So I take my end point, and unfortunately my screen doesn't scroll anymore, and I put my end point there, and I put my start point up here. Get up there, and instantly I have a jump, quite a long one. 1, 2, 3. I think maybe I should have put that elsewhere so as I can actually count, or move the whole shebang. I can tell that stop for a minute and drop the magnification on this. It's giving me the wrong size hoop, that's why. Couldn't understand why I'd disappeared out of my hoop. There we go. So let's bring it back up again. And highlight that one and just move him over a little. Right, now you can see that jump. And there are my needle penetrations. There's my tie off. There's my tie on. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 needle up jumps. So that would definitely trim at the machine. And all I did was move my start and end point. Okay, so I moved this so as you could see that jump, which means the machine would trim there and do 3 or 4 little stitches, and then it would get up to this point and it would tie itself in, give me another 3 or 4 stitches. It all depends on distance, and if the distance isn't great enough, move your start point. Now if I go into Object Reshape again and I move that start point, say, down to here where that end point is, I've still got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've now got 6 needle up commands. So even if I move this closer, and I have to tell the Object Reshape to quit working, if I moved that closer so that it just touched there, and then just for the sheer heck of it, except now it's not going to let me, there it is, I rotate that shape a little bit, move that point to there. I'm not suggesting you rotate it, I just want you to see where that jump is. It's not going to let me show you. There it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because I've moved it this way now. So if I moved it back there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I've still not got it back to where it was. But of course now you can't see the jump. So if the distance is too small and you don't have all these points, and I'm going to shoot the other side, and I'm going to make that one come closer to this one, and then I'm going to alter the exit and entry points on this. I'm going to put my entry point up at the top. I've still got 1, 2, 3 clear needle up commands. I'll take that up to 800 so as you can see. 1, 2, 3, 4 needle up commands before it actually ties in. And that measurement now is 4.3 millimeters long. So it's giving me needle penetrations every 1 millimeter. Okay, let's drop this down and just take a little of this strength out of the screen because it's hurting my eyeballs. I don't know about yours. And we'll make that a lighter colour, but one which is still going to show up the needle penetrations. And now I'm going to go lettering and trims. Thank you. And we'll go for a script. Tell that OK. Drop it here. Now let's take a look at that, because this is another bugbear for most embroiderers. They think they have to have a trim between every single letter. Right. There is a tie-on stitch there. Let me just come out of that. There's a tie-on stitch. There's a tie-on stitch. That means there will be a trim between the T and the R. There won't be one anywhere else until you get to the end, because each of these is interlocked. So let's just go and change the lettering on that, or the letter style. So I'll just click on it and lettering. I will change it to a different lettering style and we'll make it Hannah. Okay, now we have a tie off here. Let me come out of that. We have a tie off there and a tie on there. We don't have one here. We've got one down here, which means it's going to trim there. We've got a tie on here. We don't have one here. So what can we do about that? Well, we highlight it. We go into Object Reshape. And inside Object Reshape, or if you walk through it, you can move them. You can tell it that you want, I've got to get onto the trace line and my eyesight is not fantastically good, so I've got to take this up even larger and get it into the screen where you can see it. Okay, there's my trace line, the pale white line. I click on that and I can then move some of these nodes, and if I bring that down a little tighter, I've still only got one. So the alternative is, and I'm going to change the colour of the whole of this, make that green, and then using my home keys, home, and it turns the whole lot black, which means there are no stitches because they haven't been made yet. I use my page down and that puts all my red stitches in because I'm paging through my colours. Now I start to use my right facing directional arrow key and I start laying in the stitches here. So that's those in, come down onto this one. I get as far as here. Right, now I'm into the jump, so I come back one using my left arrow key. I pick up my run line tool and I put a node from there down to here. Now I've got a trimmable jump because I've increased the number of needle up penetrations across there. I wouldn't even bother trimming that. This has got a trim, so we shoot up through him. We get to the bottom of this one and I'm using my right facing arrow key. I've jumped into the next one, so I jump back. I've still got my run line tool, so I take a stitch there and I drop it back along and I bring it back to here and I enter that. Now I've got a trim, so my machine will trim at the base of the M, and we'll just continue on. Okay, so you can put your own trims in between lettering, but to be quite truthful, when they're that teeny, don't trim. If you don't like where they actually are, you can make them so that they jump across the shortest point by using the same method, and then they just sink into the weave of your fabric so they can't be seen. So that's a teeny bit about trims. You have to discover what the trim setting on your machine is, whether it's by needle up commands or if it's by distance. And if it's less than 2 millimeters, it's highly unlikely it will trim. If it's more than 2 millimeters, then there's a good possibility it will trim. If it's anything from 2.5 to 4 millimeters, there's also a good possibility it will trim again. If you want something to touch, let's undo that, tell it stop. Click on that one to highlight it. If you want that there, or fairly close, but you want it to trim, move your start point elsewhere to give it a long enough entry for your machine to be able to trim. And your start and end points can be accessed through Object Reshape, which is the fourth icon along on your bottom toolbar. That's your start, the diamond. That's your end, the cross. And you can move your diamond anywhere on your shape, preferably on a straight line. You're going to need to finish. And you can put your end point there. And there you can see the jump running from the edge of this one up through to there, so you will get a trim before this shape starts. Okay, now I hope that has helped you.